All right. Well, happy, beautiful, amazing afternoon, evening, or whatever time of day it is in your part of the world. Dr. Bob Rakowski here at the Dr. Bob Rakowski Podcast. And I've got a great friend that's going to be part of this episode, Dr. Paul Reed. But Paul is someone I've known of for longer than I've known him. I was one of the presenters at his ChiroFest podcast. And I'll tell you what, he is the guy that knows how to bring together champions. He brings together influencers, and he has succeeded in about every area of life that you can succeed in: mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, socially, financially, impactfully. He's been a successful chiropractor. He's been a successful mentor. He's a fitness fanatic. And he's even gone into that rare air of creating a profoundly successful conference. You're one of the best influencers I know.
Well, thank you.
You've succeeded in more domains than most people I know. Well, but I'm going to start out with a simple yet complex question. How do you define health?
How do I define health? I define health as your body performing and functioning at this highest level in all capacities, which, as you opened up with, we are a multifaceted being, right? So we're a physical being, emotional being, spiritual being, physical being. So we got to make sure that all components of health are working together optimally for optimal health. And so that comes from us not looking through unilateral lenses, right? And looking under the hood and monitoring how things are going on and being proactive. And again, in all those components, facets to make sure that we are achieving optimal health and performance and vitality, most importantly, right?
Yeah. Well, now if we were to ask that question, how many people actually come in that are even close to that in any single category? When we look at our population,
right? Yeah. It's unfortunate and sad, but true. But that's our responsibility. That's too much is given, much is expected, right? So that's our job.
And we have that same philosophy on that one too. So, what's your daily routine like? What do you do to stay so fit and healthy?
Oh, brother. So, man, it is, first and foremost, it's consistency, right? I think that, where a lot of people fall off is they don't see the immediate results. Like I don't have Dr. Bob's abs. I don't look the way that he looks at his age. Like, I'm done. I'm just going to throw in the talent instead of just knowing that each day is progressively building that next best version of you and just holding your line. No, you might not look like him, but know that those deposits that you're making every day, getting in your quiet time, doing your reading, doing some cardio, doing some some anaerobic stuff, like all that is building that next best version of yourself. And so it's just, I think above all, consistency is the key. Doesn't matter what you're doing, as long as you are doing, right? It's the process. So I think the way I train and lift and take care of myself might not be designed for somebody else, but it's just important that they are doing.
Well, you are pretty extreme and profoundly fit. Paul, do you mind sharing with the world, what year were you born?
71. I am 53.
Yeah. And then, hanging with 30-year-olds, 20-year-olds in nearly every category. So
I do my best to. You with that. I do my best to. It hasn't come without injury in the past, but, you can't, unfortunately, I can't undo the competitive spirit that I carry with me.
Well, you know what? I can relate to that on every single level. So in your journey, was there some event, some pivotal moment, some mentor that really got you to step up your game, or have you just always been that way?
I have, truthfully and full transparency, have always been that way. It's really kind of been my, my dad bought me a total gym, the old Chuck Norris thing, when I was 12 or 13, like really, really young. And we had it in the spare bedroom, and I would go in there every night and do my push-ups, do my workout on that. And it's always, it's just always been my MO. I don't know how or why. Anyway, yeah. So truthfully, I have been an exercise advocate, enthusiast, passionate, however you'd like to describe it, since I was a little dude. And so my dad got me that. And so it's really been my source, we'll say my source of sanity. It was my outlet to remove all uncomfortable feelings, emotional, whatever's going on. And so it's always been a part of my DNA. I just really think that's, and maybe that's part of why I'm where I'm at. It's not in some folks' DNA the way it is in my DNA. And so, I was crazy enough, like even, middle school, I wrestled as well as football. And so I would run home to lose weight, from middle school. I throw the backpack on. Yeah, I throw the backpack on here at, sixth grade, whatever. I'm going to run home, whatever it was, 7 miles just to drop weight for wrestling. So I was a little bit of an outlier.
Well, yeah, in every way, as you still are. So, I find that beyond fascinating. But I want to take a little spin on that. Right, it's in your DNA, right, and it clearly shows. But it doesn't have to be in your DNA because very, very simply, we know that epigenetics, 90 to 95% of what we show is our choices, not our DNA. So we all can remodel that. And I heard a Robin Sharma quote that I liked today, but he wasn't the originator of it. It's easier to act your way into a certain way of thinking than to think your way into a certain way of acting.
100%.
So if you start acting like a fit person, then you start thinking like a fit person.
Yeah,
and let's face it, like you said, health and wellness is all areas of life. And it probably has raised your game. It certainly gives you credibility. When you show up to talk about health, people go, okay, I think I'm going to listen to this guy.
Yeah. And a perfect segue into what you're talking about, or example of what you're talking about is the CrossFit world and what that has done for people's lives. Like somebody could not show up fit, not show up mobile, not show up healthy, making bad decisions, and they get around that culture and they start acting different, right? And then they incorporate different habits, which change the way they think about those habits. And 100%. So good stuff right there.
Well, and there's another segue too, right? So when you start hanging around with a healthy crowd, you're likely to get healthy. I think the proverb actually says this: hang out with 5 fools, you'll likely be the 6th. It goes in the other direction too.
Yeah. Amen. Yes, you're exactly right. We do become who we hang out with. That's why it's I would say that's the other thing that I have learned, sometimes the hard way, but really protecting your mind and space by those that you're hanging out with, because not everybody makes good decisions. Not everybody wants you to succeed. And so really limiting your bandwidth to those that are supporting and encourage you, moving in the right direction, and not that you can't associate with and acknowledge those others, but don't let them rent too much space between your ears because it can affect you. So
did you have to learn that one the hard way?
Oh, 100% had to learn that the hard way. Yeah, especially early in my business career. Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of naysayers that tell you can't and shouldn't do things that are on your heart to do, and that you're supposed to do. So it's you got it. I have learned that the hard way. Unfortunately,
you know what? I literally just had a conversation with a friend that's going through that right now, where he had someone that was a true friend, and he just rained all over his parade. You're being ridiculous. Why are you setting your sights so high? Scale back. Be reasonable.
Yeah.
Reasonable people don't change the world.
Amen.
And you are one of the most unreasonable in that way people that I know. So good for you.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, back to, my example, one of the many examples, but one that stands out the most was I was beginning to do multiple practices. I opened my second clinic 10 years into my career. So that would have been 16, 17 years ago. And people are like, you're nuts. What are you doing? Why would you do that? It's hard to manage 3 people, let alone 10 people, let alone, as we scaled to 5. But I didn't find it hard. And I think if you like anything in life, if you create a system and a process to create ease, it's possible, but it's those that are unwilling to do the work to create the system and the process in their life, to create, us being practitioners, wellness practitioners, we're all about ease, right? Not dis-ease, but creating ease in the body. And so it's no different than anything in your life. Finding a rhythm with your relationship, your wife, is going to create ease when you're connecting and communicating and collaborating. Showing up to the gym daily is going to create ease in your life, because you're not going to, get out of shape and have chronic illness that's going to set in. Eating healthy every day is going to create ease in your life. And so it's creating those systems and those processes that are going to enable ease into your life. And so it's no different with business. So that was my one example.
Well, Paul, I kind of got the idea that, I don't know, you seem like an overnight success, but most overnight successes are about 15, 20 years of hard work.
Yeah, exactly. When nobody's watching, right?
Yeah.
And that's the crazy thing about it is traveling and speaking. People think that it is just an overnight, hey, I'd really love to do what you did. Like, good, start grinding and expect it to happen in 15 or 20 years, So it's, Yep.
That reminds me of a John Maxwell quote. I was listening to someone, interview him, and someone came up to him and said, I really like to do what you do. He says, awesome, just do what I did. You know, if you want to do what I did, which in his case was 60 plus years of research, right? So we're talking many, many, many decades.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's a term shortcut. There's another term smart cut. And like biohacks, I would consider smart cuts.
Amen.
So do you have any of those smart cuts, biohacks, anything that you really like?
Well, I mean, I think first and foremost, business sense, you know, quote unquote, I like to say that I've paid the dummy tax, you know, now that I'm in the, you know, quote unquote, mentorship coaching space, like I've paid the dummy tax. I learned the hard way, leverage the mistakes that I made, right, to shortcut your success. And I think that's, you know, one of the most important things is folks to leverage that. So, yeah.
You know, I like what you said, that one of my mentors said this: good mentors, good coaches, they're like a time machine and a money machine. Right. So you accelerate your future. You know, you can advance 10 years in maybe a matter of 1 year. So where are you, you know, where's your life going now? I mean, you've climbed a lot of mountains. What's the next mountain you're working on?
You know, really serving men and chiropractors, helping them show up the best for themselves, you know, master, again, incorporating, you know, I'm again, advocate, as I'm sure you are, that your life is a reflects in your business. So the more in order your life is, the more in order your business will be, the more successful you're in life, the more successful your business will be. And so it's really, yes, I can teach them the systems and the process of growth and scaling and creating a successful business, but it's more about helping them become successful themselves, creating the disciplines, creating the habits, creating the rhythms that again will create ease. And when there's ease and success in your life, the business will take care of itself. So.
Now, you specifically called out men, even though there are some phenomenal female chiropractors, right? But so tell me, you know, men, because there's a lot of people on that bandwagon. A lot of men probably wouldn't pass the man test not too many years, you know, for what we consider to be a man a handful of years ago. So what do you think's going on there?
You know, I think for lack of we've gotten soft and complacent and letting. We've become civilized, I guess is the term that I like to use, or industrialized, however you'd like to say it. We've allowed the world to influence who we become and how we act and how we think and the things we do. And for lack of better terms, we've gotten soft, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And we're not stepping into that gap and leading the way we're supposed to lead, starting with self, right? If you can't lead yourself, you're not going to be able to lead your family or your business or your team, your community. And so it really starts with you owning who you are and learning to lead self first. And when you lead self, all those other things are easy to lead. But I look to mentors, like when I always have a mentor, will always have a mentor. And I look for mentors that, again, as successful as I've been, there's always somebody else that's been more successful in one or many of those categories of life. And so finding somebody that I align with, I connect with, I resonate with, however you'd like to say it, that's done or is at where I want to go in life. And again, using the dummy tax example, leveraging and learning from them to get me to that place. And I think that men, unfortunately, especially in our space, our practicing space, whether it's ego or pride or fear, like they're unwilling to recognize where they're at and do the work that they need to do to get to where they say they want to go. So whether it's a fact that they want to go to that place, or they're saying it to look cool, feel cool, or want to be like somebody else, but they need to first embrace where they're at and acknowledge it. You know, self-awareness, I think, is a very difficult learned skill. And it comes by removing ego. Like, dude, I screwed that up. I need to do something different. But a lot of men, quote unquote, we'll call them out, don't want to do that. Whereas I think, you know, from being married for 31 years, having coached some successful female chiropractors, they acknowledge areas where they need to grow easier or embrace it easier than men. Same thing with, you know, coaching, you know, my kids growing up, my son's teams, the boys, like getting them to stay disciplined and follow, you know, do quote unquote, do the basics. Right, was harder than my daughter's teams. Like, okay, yes, I'll pass 2 or 3 times before I try and shoot. Right, whereas the boy's like, no, I just want to shoot the rock. Like, and so I just think it's something innately in men, and those that succeed at a high level, I think, have learned to be self-aware and know that they can improve, and acknowledging that and embracing it. So.
I have a patient who's a grandmaster in Kung Fu, and he's a multiple-time world champion.
That's awesome.
And he trains people that become national champions even before they get a black belt. Rick Armstrong is his name. I said, what makes you such a great instructor? And he said, look, I tell all my students, if you master the basics, you'll seldom need anything else. So if you were to pick, I'm going to give you just number 3. What 3 basics would you encourage people to master if you had to just pick 3?
Oh man. So, connection, communication, are 2, right? Especially in our space, you have to connect with the patient. You got to communicate to the patient, and then our skill, like really working on your quote unquote technique or skill, your art, that you're delivering. But I think, again, maybe the number 1 thing that quote unquote chiropractors can learn and leverage is communication. We have to be, blessing or curse. Some of the most successful docs that I see, they might not necessarily have the best quote unquote skill, but they're great communicators. And so they can communicate who they are, why they do what they do, why it's important you receive what they do. And so they're successful. So I think, the number 1 thing, quote unquote, a chiropractor can do is learn how to communicate.
Since we were going to go with 3 C's, I like things to blend together, right? So connect, communicate. How about craft, or how about calling? That could be the C that goes in there.
Yeah.
Very, very, very nicely. So, let's say I have a young doc that I want to refer to you, and he potentially has everything he needs to put it together, but just hasn't. What's your starting point with this guy? How do you figure out where to go?
First and foremost, all of them, we do a deep dive into their goals and really getting clarity. A lot of times I'll find that it's, again, back to like, well, my influence of my mentor growing up, I feel like I should practice or grow or do this thing, or my parents or a teacher or somebody, so that they really haven't gotten certain on where they want to go. And so then establishing that certainty on like, this is really what I want my life to look like, my practice to look like, my marriage to look like, my finances. That's the other huge outlying weakness I see in our profession is quote unquote chiropractors are not good financial stewards. And so I see a lot of them deep into their career and not in a very healthy, quote unquote, at ease position financially. And so again, helping them establish clarity and want to go, and then reverse engineering who they got to be every stinking day. Like, who do you have to show up every day to create that vision that you have for yourself 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road? And so first and foremost, we really get clear on what they truly, truly, truly want. And sometimes that needs to be collaborated with their spouse, to make sure that they're on the same page, because where there's incongruence, you're never going to achieve it. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of which mentor said, but the first thing he said before anybody ever goes to a higher level of education, the first thing they ought to do is be locked in a room until they have that clarity about what their life wants to look like. Yeah. And then, like you said, reverse engineer. So, look, you're trying to get this degree, but a degree in Egyptian history is probably not going to get you where you think you want to go.
Right. Yeah. And that's, I think, today's education system is really not helping those students, right? We know that it's failing the college world. And I think it's because kids think that whatever degree they're getting in is going to get them where they want to go, where it's not. Most of the time it's not. And so I think establishing that clarity and that certainty, I like to say, when the vision's clear, the mechanism will appear. So once you get the vision on where you want to go, the how usually falls into place. Not tomorrow or the next day, but if you, again, the clearer you are, you're going to run into roadblocks that are going to push you in different directions to grow into the person you need to be to get to where you want to go. So,
we could have opened a can of worms with this. So our education system has failed. If I was going to put you in charge, what would you change? What would you make different?
Oh, goodness, brother. I honestly, I think, well, our undergraduate or our professional?
Let's do all the above, right?
I think, I think undergraduate, the fees. Like, it's just silly what, first and foremost, like the affordability of it is just silly. Whether it's undergraduate or graduate school, chiropractic school, my son's halfway through now, and it is silly what those students are having to pay to get their degree. It's, there's some of them are getting out with a, $250,000 to $350,000 of debt. In a profession, unless they're an outlier, what our average gross what is the average chiropractor make right now statistically? I think it's like $100,000 in the United States or something to that effect.
It's been a while since I looked at it, but sounds like the right number.
I think it's there, maybe plus or minus a little bit, and so you have $300,000 in net on average, of debt that they're having to work through, as well as making a house payment, a car payment, and all the other stuff that comes with it. So I think the first thing is the financial component of it would help with, so yeah, right.
No doubt about that. I recall when I decided to become a chiropractor, and I might ask you your journey there, but I asked my chiropractor, I said, look, I want to be a great chiropractor. What do I need to do? And he said, learn from great chiropractors. Mm-hmm. Okay, good plan.
So true.
But then he said, you're not likely to find them at school. And what do you mean I'm not going to find them at school? But I'll tell you, I went to the top engineering school in the state of Wisconsin for my undergrad. And part of what made them top, Milwaukee School of Engineering, was everybody there had to have 7 years experience in industry.
Wow.
So they had to be successful. So the guy that taught me microprocessors was the designer of the 8088 microprocessor for Intel.
That's awesome.
When people have that kind of street smarts, activity smarts, they can pay it forward.
Yeah.
But I don't know about your chiropractic education, but
no, most of them are failed chiropractors that taught.
Yeah, it's that deal, right?
Unfortunately. Yeah.
So we want to learn from people that know. And, what about, I actually consider there's a lot of unnecessary hoops to jump through, to kind of get your badge of honor that, I endured all this pain and suffering. But how much did it really have to do with what you're going to do?
Yeah. And yay and amen. You're 100% right. A lot of it, there is a lot of unnecessary time spent doing things that you're not necessarily going to do. Yeah.
So it seems like, your mentorship for people that are already, have already jumped through the hoops, but maybe there's a whole new mentorship idea for people that are thinking about jumping through the hoops, and how can you create a better path? That might be a good thing to do in the future.
This is true. Clarity brings, we know that conflicts clarify, right? So when we run into obstacles in our life, I think it's one of BJ's books, right? Or was it Dee? We tend to avoid the obstacle. I like to say that a lot of people in life, when they run into an obstacle, it's easier to go around that, diverge around it, instead of working through that obstacle. And that obstacle is just teaching us a lesson, right? It's exposing a weakness. It's exposing something that we need to improve on physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, whatever it is, right? It's teaching us a lesson, and going around that obstacle in life, going around that conflict, avoiding it, is not going to help you become better at that thing that it's trying to teach you. And so I think, again, back to some of society's problems today, men's problems today, is we spend too much time avoiding challenge, avoiding the obstacle, avoiding conflict, for whatever reason, right? There might be multiple reasons, but that's not helping us or that person become a better version of themselves. And so it's, and then we end up in the same spot, right? We wonder why we're not progressing and growing through life. Well, we're not doing anything to grow, so you're not going to grow, right? If you're not doing, quote unquote, doing hard things, you're not going to grow. So,
Stoic wisdom says the obstacle is the way. In fact, that's even a book by Ryan Holiday, which is excellent. And one of my recent mentors said, look, you probably know that the hardest times throughout your entire existence created the biggest breakthroughs. Mm-hmm. So he tried to reframe it that it's not going to be fun, but why not welcome it, knowing that something is going to be better on the other side of it.
Yeah, so true. But it's building the endurance, the fortitude to know that, like, I will be better on the other side of this, and not like throwing in the towel, I'm done, and checking out, and like, I don't, it's same thing, right? You and I you're a very, very fit, healthy man, and same thing. Like, it's a process. Like, it just doesn't happen overnight, over a week or two. And that's, historically we see folks join the gym in January, and then, the gyms are empty in the middle of February. It's because, like, I didn't get my results in 6 weeks. I'm out. I'll go back to sitting on the couch. It's easier. Right. So
there's a researcher, Martin Seligman, and he talks about the delayed gratification. He said that was the number one predictor of success in all areas of life. So ultimately, we need to know that anything worthwhile is not going to happen at the blink of an eye. It's going to be, that hard effort. So, Paul, we're coming up on the magic time for a podcast, which is about 30 minutes, right?
Wow.
So if you had one, time flies when you're having fun.
Right. Absolutely.
If you had one message to share with the world, what's Paul Reed's message for those that just need something to cling to move forward?
Yeah. Know that greatness is inside, and embrace the suck to get there. Like it's like I like to say, embrace the suck. Like, and again, I think that's, quote unquote, been one of my, means to success, was just really embracing the uncomfortable thing and doing the things that most won't do, to get to where I wanted to go.
Were you by chance a Navy SEAL?
I was not.
Okay, because that's where I kept hearing embrace the suck, embrace the suck, embrace the suck.
Yeah, it's a SEAL thing. Yeah,
you're SEAL tough, that's for sure.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
Well, you know what? From this angle, you certainly look that way, and everything I know about you, and
thanks, buddy.
In many ways, you've succeeded mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, socially, financially, impactfully. So, if people want to take advantage of your great programs and mentorship, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Just message me on social. Yeah, here on Instagram, DM me, Facebook, message me, whatever it is. I'm pretty casual, laid back, and transparent and authentic about who I am, what I can do for you or not. If
I like that. Yeah, you don't wear the fake hat. You don't. You know what? You're the real. You're the real deal. So, and that's why I'm honored to talk with you. So, with that said, you know what? Take some of this. Take action on whatever resonated with you. Remember, someone said you're still echoing. Sorry about that on Instagram.
Robert Silverman's listening. Hey, Robert. What's up, buddy?
Well, they're. Hey, Bob, I want to interview you, bud.
Here we go.
We'll fix the echo, but I want you next there, pal. All right. So, hey, wherever you are in the world, take action to move towards your better life. Get great mentors, surround yourself in a good community, and know that it's going to take a little bit of time to get wherever you want to go, especially if you want to go someplace meaningful. So I appreciate you, Paul. Thanks for all the wisdom you share.
Thank you.